Alright, welcome to part 2 of placing images and graphics. Okay, next I'm going to show you how to add a pattern to a background. So now I'm going to go into Adobe Illustrator. I purchased this pattern from a stock website that sells vector background patterns. And what I did is change the color of the pattern to a warm gray. And I can select this and copy it into InDesign. You can do that one of two ways. You can hit Command A on a Mac to select all and hit Edit to copy. Or you can go to Select All and go to Edit to copy. And then I'm going to click on the icon in my dock for InDesign to go back into that program. And I'm going to select my graphic frame, which is now the background of this particular page, and go to Edit to Paste Into. It's going to paste that background into the graphic frame, and it's a little bit smaller than this page, so we're going to do the same thing we did with the photographs and go to Object, Fitting, to fill frame proportionally. And it's going to fill our background with that pattern, and it's going to center it with inside that graphic frame. And if you see, this image is just way too dark and I cannot see my text. So I want to screen back that image and lower the opacity of that. If you do not have your effects panel open, go to Window and click on Effects. Click on our graphic frame again and select the vector image that's in there. Go to Object, Select Content, and now we have our vector image selected. The effects is set at 100%. I'm going to lower the opacity down to 50. And you can see now it's lower. It's lightened that color. It's basically making a ghost image of our pattern. And 50 is still too dark, so I'm going to drop it down to 25. That's still too dark. I can't quite see my text. I think I'm going to drop it down to about 10% and click OK. That's pretty good. I think I really like that pattern. It's still you still see that text. It's pretty clear. Let me zoom in on that. There's still enough contrast that I can see my text and the pattern at the same time. But if you find that still a little too dark for you, go ahead and click on the content. Click on the graphic frame again. Go to Object, Select Content, and change it from 10% to 5%. 5% is still dark enough that you'll be able to see it in printing. If you're using it, this document just for the internet, you want to put it on issue and you find it still too light, you can bump it up to 10% or maybe 8% and that'll still be dark enough. But if you're printing, pretty standard is keeping that at 5% for really dark backgrounds. Instead of having a pattern background in this graphic frame, I want to have a photograph. So I'm going to delete this particular graphic frame because it's actually going to interfere with the image that I placed there. I'm going to select it and delete it. Then I'm going to select on the background graphic frame and go to Object, to Select, to Content. Now that content is selected, that pattern, I'm going to delete it. Then I'm going to select the graphic frame background and go to File, to Place. And I'm going to find an image to place into that background, double clicking. And InDesign has filled the frame and centered my image. Now I'm going to go to Object, Select Content, and over to the Effects menu, I'm going to reduce the opacity to 25%. And if 25% is still too much or too little, you can increase that up to 35 or go down to 10, depending on how soft you want that image to look. One more image placing exercise I want to show you is placing an image on a spread. Now a spread is going to be two 8.5 by 11 pages put together side by side. I have a couple of options that have 2 pages set on that particular spread, but this one has one horizontal image going across 2 pages. Now you want to pick an image that has a subject in there that doesn't get cut off in between these 2 pages. So this image that I have placed here, this silhouette, kind of gives you an idea of where you want to place your image. You can do this to placing it to the left or placing it to the right or placing it to the left like this one has it. To place an image on this, just click on the graphic frame, go to File, to Place, and choose a horizontal image that will work best for your layout. I'm going to choose this image here. Okay. Now my particular image does not quite fit the graphic frame, so I'm going to go to Object, Fitting, to fill frame proportionally. And it fit the rest of the image in there and centered it as well. And now you can see our text boxes are going over the face of our subject in our portrait. And you can click on those text frames. So click on the first one and then hold your Shift key down to select the other text frame and just move it down. Okay, and you can see that this particular image is positioned where the majority of the client, their face is in this left-hand side of the spread. Now I'm going to go and choose another one. I'm going to go through changing this through the links palette. So bringing up the links palette over here, and I have my graphic frame selected and it's highlighted in the links panel. So from there, I'm going to right click. You can also go to the very top of the links panel and go to relink. I'm going to locate a different image. Let's say this image with more of a close-up of a face. Now this one, you can see this black line is actually going through her face. To move this image over to the right-hand side of the spread, I'm going to take my mouse and move it over to the center of the graphic so my content grabber appears. I'm going to click and drag it across to the left. And I want to position her face so that's not getting cut off by the center of that spread. So let me go to preview so you can see what that image looks like without guides and bleeds. And we're looking pretty good. I like the way this looks, and let's see what it looks like with the magazine effect. Let's turn that back on. And her eye is actually getting a little shadowed by that magazine effect, so maybe we can move it over just a little bit more. Let's select the graphic frame and go to Object, select Content, which is another way to select the content inside a graphic frame. And I'm going to hold down my Shift key and use my arrow on my keyboard to move it to the right. So now I've moved my image so that the majority of my subject is on the right-hand side of my spread. And you can also move the text over to the other side if you want, or we can add more text frames to the left-hand side to kind of beef this up a little bit. Take this image so it looks like it's filling up the entire space of the spread. And I'm going to adjust it a little bit more. So instead of having to actually fix our background in Photoshop, I'm just enlarging the image here in InDesign. So maybe I want to add maybe one or two more images to this particular layout, and I want to put them on the left-hand side of my spread. Let me go back into normal mode, and I'm going to go over to the Tools palette and select my Rectangle Frame tool, and I'm going to just click on the left-hand side of my spread, and a dialog box is going to pop up, and I want to make the size of my dimensions of my new graphic frame to be 3 by 5. So I'm going to put in 5 at the width, select the height to be 3 inches, and click OK. And now I've created a new graphic frame tool. And I'm going to click and slide it over, and I'm going to place another image in there. Go to File, to Place, and I'm going to select another image, let's say another horizontal image, and we'll use this one. Okay. And my image is obviously a lot bigger than that graphic frame, so I'm going to go to Object, Fitting, Fit Frame Proportionally, and we have a new picture inside our we have a new graphic frame on the left-hand side of our spread. I'm going to click W on my keyboard to see preview. And I think maybe I might want to put a frame around this graphic frame. So I'm going to go over to my stroke palette, and if it's not open again, you can find that under Window. And I'm going to select a stroke weight, and I usually start with about 5. And I want to change the color of that, so I'm going to go over to my swatches, and I'm going to click on the stroke icon at the very top left-hand corner of that swatch palette and click on paper. All right, and now I have a white frame around my new graphic frame on the left-hand side of my spread. And if you want to add more of those, you can just copy and paste them. Hit Command-C to copy, and then Command-V to paste, and you can duplicate that. Or go ahead and create another graphic frame by selecting the rectangle frame tool and clicking in this area until a dialog box pops up, and choose a new dimension for that. Maybe you want to make it a vertical, so now we'll make it 3 inches by 5 inches. Click OK. And now you have a vertical version of a new graphic frame. And again, File to place. Choose another image to place in there. And go to Object, Fitting, Fit Frame Proportionally. And now we have another image. And you can just move these around until you like the way they are placed. I think I'm going to center this image within this page and move this over to the left. And I want to align it with this image, so I'm going to click on both these images. I'm going to use the Align tools at the top of my control panel, and I'm going to align right edges, and now both my pictures are aligned. And I want to do the same thing with this graphic frame and put a white frame around it. So I'm just going to use my eyedropper tool, and with the graphic frame selected that does not have a frame, I'm going to take the eyedropper and sample the frame on the other graphic frame. So now we have a matching white frame around both our new graphic frames. And that about covers everything we need to know about placing images and graphics. Let's go ahead and move on to adding swatches and changing color in our InDesign tutorial series number 3.